Welcome to the Do You Feel Heard podcast, a production of Helping the Herd. Helping the Herd is committed to empowering individuals to liberate themselves from the patterns that keep them from creating their ideal life. If you like this podcast, visit helpingtheherd.com to find resources and personalized coaching to empower you to be your best self. Good morning, everyone. How are we today?
Doing good. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. Derek, how you doing?
Good morning. Doing well. Just getting accustomed to having multiple floors in a house and trying to do laundry and realizing you have to run down 3 to 4 flights of steps to get to them to run up. So, getting my cardio in this morning.
Yeah, that's it's very important to have I read something recently that was saying that, like, if you work out in the morning, that's the best thing to do for your body rather than doing it later. I don't remember why, but it sounds like intuitively you're already getting that done this morning.
There you go. That's what happens when you live in tall, thin houses. Get your cardio in.
Well, today we were going to discuss self-responsibility and the role that it plays not only in the work that we do with our clients, but also just the role that it plays in creating an ideal life for yourself. Does anybody have anywhere they want to start with that?
You can lead it off if you want.
All right. So in my view, self-responsibility is taking ownership and accountability for the role that you play in the experience that you're having. Far too often we blame, we project, we deflect anything to avoid being responsible for what happened, because what happened maybe wasn't desirable or ideal, or maybe hurtful, right? And we don't want to be responsible for that for any number of reasons. A common thing that I see with clients is a lot of shame and guilt that came from a mindset that was bred in childhood, that was kind of modeled for them, that, oh, you did this thing, you spilled this glass of whatever, you shouldn't have done that, you're wrong for doing that. And so to take responsibility is to accept the blame, and if you're blamed, you're also wrong, which has those associated feelings attached to it. Granted, no one's there giving you that, right? You're imposing it on yourself. You're putting that blame and that guilt and shame onto yourself. There's not mom or dad or whoever was there modeling that behavior doing it now. But since it's a learned pattern, we do it to ourselves unknowingly. And part of this work of self-responsibility is acknowledging that, yes, I made choices, or I said a certain thing or did a certain thing that helped to create or contribute to a certain outcome. That doesn't mean that I was wrong for doing it, but I did do it. Like, to observe the situation without judgment, without judging yourself or anyone else for what happened, and just accepting that it did happen. By doing that and keeping your focus there, it allows you to stay focused on what do we do about it? How do we resolve this thing? How do we repair whatever has been broken or damaged, rather than getting caught up in, well, whose fault is it?
Yeah, I like that a lot. What you said about, when you're like younger, blame is a big thing. If you do something wrong, you kind of feel guilt for it, and you're taught that, like, when you do something that affects someone in a certain way or yourself a certain way, you're in trouble almost, And I like what you said, because it's true. Like, learning self-responsibility is learning to be accountable, but also you have to learn how to not be too hard on yourself, because if you do that, you're just going to always be harping on the negative on yourself. Like, for me, when I do something that wasn't ideal, like I did something that created an outcome that was not maybe ideal for myself or for someone else. In the past, I would have really dwelled on it and been like, man, like I messed up. I'm a jerk, this and that. And now it's more of what I did, next time I would like to do it differently. And so I just reflect on that. Like, if this situation comes up again, how would I go about it differently? So that's a big one for me when it comes to self-responsibility.
That's great.
I really like that. It's the balancing act with responsibility is between taking on as much responsibility as you can and then not being crushed by it and letting that make you backslide or fall into bad patterns or become overwhelmed. How do you do it with steady, consistent, with consistency? That's an art, and I think you have to be gentle with yourself. Gentleness is a key part of the mindfulness meditation that I teach, and that I love that principle of gentleness, because we can do that with others, but we often don't do that with ourselves. And especially if we're trying to grow, trying to take on responsibility, maybe that's discipline. You set a goal and then you don't achieve it. You try to reach an outcome and then you don't achieve it. Your response to that, I think, becomes maybe the most important part, and where responsibility really falls down, because, like you guys are saying, from maybe an early age, blame, shame, guilt started to go in and kept us from maybe being able to have a more healthy relationship to responsibility, where we take responsibility for ourselves, for other things, and we can be proud when they go well, but can we not be destroyed when they don't go well? And not be so proud that we get egotistical and feel like we can do anything and set ourselves up. It's like this game where we so often set ourselves up for the future failure by how we handle the present. And that's what I try to think of. How can you do this gently? How can you do this consistently and at a good pace? And for me, it's a lot of what you're hinting at there, Dawson, is like not attaching to the negative outcomes, not attaching to any outcome really, but trying our best. I think about the fourth agreement when you think about responsibility. Always try your best. And I think that's a really great place to start with responsibility, because it's you focused, it's your effort, and that's something that we can, if you take that on, it can be a path toward a lot of growth through responsibility. It's just that balancing act with responsibility, not going too far.
Yeah, that's great, man. The doing your best piece, I think there's a level of like comfort and safety when you really are honest with yourself about, was it your best? Because if it no one can determine your best, right? You determine your best, and what other people think or feel about what your best is, that's ultimately in their domain. You can't control that, and you're not responsible for their judgments or their opinions or any of that. What you can do, what is within your control, is you can look in the mirror, metaphorically or literally, and ask yourself, did I do the best that I could with this situation? And if you can honestly say yes, I mean, that's all you could have possibly done then. Like, to have expected yourself to do more than your best is unfair. Would you expect other people to do more than their best? And this kind of goes into this thing where we are far more critical on ourselves. And this is where self-talk and our relationship with ourselves is so important, because if your friend did the exact same thing you did, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a lot more patience and understanding and compassion for them to make mistakes and grow and do things that maybe weren't as ideal as they would have liked to. But if you did it, man, what an idiot, or I suck, or whatever, it's just really easy to fall into that trap. And so to shift your mindset to, well, did I do the best that I could? And if so, then give yourself grace, be gentle with yourself. And the other piece that I think is important around this is awareness only comes from experiences. Like, you have to make a mistake to recognize it was a mistake. You have to get triggered to recognize that there is a trigger. Like, you can't know that there's something there unless you experience it and recognize, ooh, I don't like how this feels, or I don't desire to repeat this pattern. But if you don't ever do the pattern, you can't know there's a pattern. And so don't beat yourself up or shame yourself for having the trigger or the activation or whatever, but don't dismiss it as if, well, it's out of my control either. That's not true. You are in control of it, but you do have to be triggered in order to recognize there's a trigger. Once that happens, build the awareness that there is a trigger there, and then be more mindful. And the more times that you pay attention to it and you're aware that this trigger comes up, the sooner you'll be able to impact your response to that trigger. The sooner you'll be able to implement healthy ways to move through that trigger. And if you're busy shaming yourself for how you responded that one time, it's going to be a lot harder for you to do something different the next time it comes up.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, like there's been times where I've like caught myself kind of shaming myself in a way, for like a failure. And what kind of got me out of it is like I really sat and thought like, has there ever been a time where I've shamed myself and it's actually served me in any way? Like, has it ever really helped to do that? And the answer is no. Like, it doesn't help anything. If anything, it just makes it worse. It makes my like motivation and energy that I can put towards this thing even worse because I associate it with that shame. So yeah, that's a really good point.
What a good mantra almost. Does this serve me? Does this serve me?
Yeah, use that one a lot.
I really like that. That's some of the language I try to adopt for myself. Like, is this, whatever the thing is this serving me or not? And I think that leads well to one of the big things that happens with responsibility: excuses. Excuses are something I think about a lot. I have a blog post started that I haven't written yet. That's going to be something whenever I write it. But it's really been something I've reflected on a lot in the last year. It's something along the lines of, no one ever tells you that the hardest part about your mom dying is that you have an excuse. My mom passed away last year in April, almost a year now, and it's such a good excuse to not take responsibility for things. Something I've noticed in my mind. I really try my best not to try my best. I try my best not to fall into that excuse, but man, such a good one. And we always have excuses. That's a big example, but we always have, oh, the alarm didn't go off. Oh, I'm a little bit sick, or, oh, they did this and that's why I couldn't do this, especially with others. Oh, they showed up like this. I can't do my best work today. Look what they're doing. Or my partner said this to me, so now I have an excuse to be petulant about it. There's just so many excuses out there, and I try to look at my relationship to, what's being gentle and understandable and understanding with ourselves, and meeting ourselves where we're at, and gauging what our best is. That's the thing that I think you didn't touch on, Ian, that I'm always struggling with, is when we always try our best, that's great, but then how do we know what our best is? And that's where excuses come in for me, is where they start to like try to put their thumbs on the scale a little bit and be like, no, you can do a little bit less. You have this excuse. So yeah, I just offer that when I hear you guys' thoughts on excuses, because it's something I'm always warring with a little bit.
Yeah, I've definitely got something I want to share about excuses, but I have a follow-up question for you. How can you describe an example where you used your mother's recent death as an excuse when like interacting with your partner, for instance? Or like I heard you say like, oh, well, they said this, so I'm going to use this as an excuse. How does that connect? How are you using that as an excuse in real time in those situations?
Yeah, I think it's mainly coming up in terms of, let's say I feel like I have a need that's not being met, and there's some story in my mind, there's some line around the excuse, like, gosh, my mom just died less than a year ago. Can't she just do this one thing? Couldn't she just do X? Whatever that thing is. Don't I, deserve that? And maybe that's an area, I'm not going to say for sure, but maybe that's an area where I could be taking more responsibility and am using as an excuse to both blame my mom for dying, my partner for not understanding the pain or the difficulty of that, and why aren't they doing the thing where ultimately, and again, I'm holding this with gentleness, I'm not saying I'm wrong or right for this, there are legitimate excuses, but ultimately it's an excuse for me not taking responsibility for my own emotions or requesting the things that I need. And it can sometimes let me communicate with less, I think, responsibility and clarity than I should, because I'm like, can't she just take the burden for like a little bit? I've carried enough here.
I hear you. Well, actually, let me make sure that I heard you. What I'm hearing you say is that when you're upset about things not being the way you want, or for a certain need that you have that isn't being met, which the other person may not even understand because you haven't communicated directly. But when you're feeling the feelings coming up, hurt, disappointment, sadness, whatever, resentment, connected to that unmet need, the excuse for not communicating maybe directly, hey, I have this need, are you available to meet it? That's where the excuse comes in of, well, they just do this, or why aren't they just giving me what I need, or supporting me in this way because of this, because I deserve it. This is the reason that I'm deserving of this thing right now that I need, rather than really, I mean, ultimately it sounds like it's kind of bypassing consent in a way, in that example of like, well, I don't need to ask or get their consent to support me because my mother died and therefore I deserve this. And so they should be giving it to me because this happened, and that way I don't have to actually say, hey, I need this support. Does that resonate?
Yeah, that resonates. I think that's most of it. I think to add the little bit of nuance, I think it's also even just the action of putting those needs onto someone else. We do need others sometimes, but I don't often know if I have tried my hardest, if I've tried my best to meet my own needs in healthy ways all the time. And I think when you're in a committed relationship, that can be an easy just conduit, a bypass for your own work, because you do take care of each other in some ways. So like you said, consent's everything. So where are the areas where maybe we haven't communicated and made this clear between the two of us, and where there hasn't been consent around what needs and what needs we are meeting for each other, and what requests we can make and are required to make and need to make if we want the other person to do something. I think sometimes the whole thing, because this stuff is work, this work that we're doing is work, obviously, of growing, of learning skills, of implementing healthy communication. If it was the default, we wouldn't be around and we wouldn't be offering these services. It's not the default at all, something I've learned. So yeah, I think it's even to the extent of me not really being honest with myself about how to answer those needs leads to this putting it off onto others, maybe most of all my partner.
Thank you for sharing. Dawson, you have anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, the excuses part, I definitely, I hear that for sure. For me, sometimes when I look back and I'm like, did I do my best? I'll kind of catch myself doing something similar where I'm like, well, I had so much on my plate today. Like, I feel like I did do my best. I don't have enough energy to do whatever else, I didn't get to. And I kind of will like almost rationalize it in a way, And sometimes it is true. Like, sometimes I genuinely don't have the capacity to do whatever the other task is. But other times, I could do it. I'm just choosing not to. So, yeah, I definitely, feel that about the excuses. And, yeah.
Yeah, I think that strikes a chord for me. I definitely do that as well. It's funny, when we first started talking about excuses, I went immediately a whole different direction. What excuses mean to me, and what like comes up for me about excuses has nothing to do with anything that you guys have been sharing about. Maybe not nothing to do, but it's a very different like application of an excuse. And so it's really interesting that we're here. Which is great. So like grateful for you too. New perspectives and new ways to see these things. But I find myself doing that with like negative behaviors. So maybe it's like, ooh, well, I've eaten healthy all week. So I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to excuse this bad behavior. This not bad, but like this harmful, right? It's not serving me. It's not in my best interest. It's not in my highest good to eat a frickin' whatever it is, a cookie or something. Like, that's not going to serve my body, but since I've been doing this, I deserve a little treat, right? Or I do that with social media of like, well, I got all my things done, and I give myself a checklist, because social media is really hard for me to manage, because not only I recognize that it's like not a great place to put my energy, and that it takes energy and I'm just giving it away to something and I'm not necessarily getting it back. And Like it's a time suck. Like you're just this scroll doom scrolling. But it also gives me so many cool things that I'm really interested in learning about. Like most of my feed is like people doing juggling tricks and like fire flow things or like relationship advice or mindfulness things. Like really good things. It's not like I'm necessarily consuming trash, if you will. I'm not watching like TikTok dancers or whatever all day, like it's productive, if you will, but also it's not where I want to be spending my time. There's other things that I'd rather be doing. But so I find myself like having excuses for why it's okay to kind of just flop down on the couch or my bed or whatever and just scroll for 30 minutes at a time. And yeah, it's interesting how my mind goes there. Where I was going to go with excuses is like the difference between like giving an excuse and sharing like an explanation, like explaining what was going on versus an excuse. And that's where for me it's activating when there's excuses. Often in past relationships, if there was conflict, there would be a deflection of responsibility for their actions by using excuses. Like, oh, well, I was doing this, so like I wasn't really able to do this, or this is what was happening, so that's why this is okay, is what it was always, it felt like that's how it was being presented. And so for me, when it comes to excuses, it's the difference between an excuse and an explanation is the purpose or the intent of sharing it. Are you wanting to be heard and seen in your experience, or are you wanting to deflect blame so you don't have to take responsibility for what you did and the subsequent consequences of those actions and how they affected the people around you? That's where I go with excuses.
That's great. I got to reflect that one. That's good. So the difference between excuses and explanations is like the intent with which it is offered. If it is to be seen and heard and understood fully for how we're both in this situation, which I think includes responsibility. There's like an underlying core of responsibility that's there with the explanation versus the opposite with the excuse. It's a deflection. It's just this is obviously why I couldn't have been bothered to do this, and get off me, with very little responsibility. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I love that. And it's like the same, it's two sides of the same coin. It's the same, you could start from the same place. And if you walk with responsibility or walk without responsibility, you'll get to either excuse or explanation. And that's so funny because you could say the same thing, yeah, I'm tired. I hurt my ankle. I found out this friend passed away this week. Those could all be explanations. And then it's really how you then swirl with that and communicate that. And that's why maybe I've been less available. And I think I'm hearing that you want me to be more available, and I can try to meet myself wherever I'm at and be as available as I can right now. That would be, an explanation leading to an understanding that we all have responsibility versus, the other one. I'm not even going to say the example, but you can see where it would go, easily lead to, and get away from me, and I can't be available for you. It's the same starting place, even the same events, but it's that mindset, and it really reminds me of how anxiety and excitement are two sides of the same coin, are basically the same thing. And it's your mindset. If you're taking something on willingly, you can be extremely excited for it, maybe anxious too. But often if you have that same feeling in your body, that electricity, that stuff, instead of it being exciting, it can be total. You can be a nervous wreck. You can feel wrecked by it, and you can feel all terrible. But it's the same physiological event happening. And if you were about to jump out of an airplane because you chose to, you might be scared but exhilarated. But if you're doing something else and you don't have that mindset right, then you can just be a nervous wreck. But same emotions, same thing.
Yeah. The part you said about excuses versus explanations. That's a really good point. Like, I feel like a lot of times with an excuse, we're not hearing the other person. Like, if someone's accusing us of, maybe not accusing, but if someone's bringing up something that we did and we immediately give an excuse, it's almost like we didn't hear how it affected them. We just immediately want the blame off of us. Whereas I think you can give an explanation while still having self responsibility. You can take responsibility in your part in the action while also, giving an explanation of, why you did what you did. I think that's fair. Um, and I think it's kind of, you know, I guess it's about your intent, like you said. I feel like I feel like I can normally tell if someone is just giving an excuse and they don't really care about how it affected me versus they hear that I'm hurt by it or that something wasn't ideal, but they want to explain themselves. So because we have a right to explain ourselves to the people in our lives. So yeah, I definitely feel that, and also yeah, I like how you explained, Derek, like how nervousness or sorry, not nervousness, excitement and anxiety are so similar. Like I tend to lean towards the anxiety part in most things, and it's almost like I wish I could just like do this and make that switch of like, you know, I'm feeling both, but why does my brain go so far towards the anxiety part? It's a life hack that I hope to unlock. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so common. Yeah, it's so common. I think it's part of the human experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I sure try to use words and my thoughts to shape that as best I can. And I think they're really powerful. I've studied a lot of different helping techniques and healing type techniques. And I'm always struck by the power that we have in our minds. It's a thing that we always have with us. It's the reason why I've been really drawn toward meditation, mindfulness stuff, because it's really helped me to get familiar with my mind, this thing that we always have. And through there, a few things, a few visualizations of the thing that you're doing being exciting instead of anxious, you experiencing it as exciting can just prime the pump for you to then step into that visualization, because at the end of the day, it's like planning. That's just preparation and allowing it to be there. Or even just literally saying the things. We talk about affirmations a decent amount. I am excited for this. I am feeling the excitement course through my body. I'm just making these up, but I feel like saying those 3 or 4 times in the mirror before you do the thing would have a really huge impact. And that's one of those things when we talk about responsibility that I always like to get back to is like an empowering mindset, because I think that's where we drop responsibility a lot of the time, is when we don't feel empowered to handle the responsibility. What comes with great responsibility, guys? Great power. We've all seen Spider-Man. Come on. With great power comes great responsibility. And so I think we're afraid of our own power off. And that's another part of this that I think happens is we're afraid of it because, just like you said, Dawson, it can hurt and it can help. We hurt other people with our actions and words because we are all interdependent. We are all connected, whether we like it or not. And so I think you hit it spot on that like the excuse comes when we're not willing to take the responsibility for that. We can't shoulder how we may have hurt someone, but at that same moment that we take away the responsibility for hurting them, we give up the power to help. We give up the power to make amends, to make things better, to grow and learn from it. So I think you can't talk about this stuff without having an empowering mindset, or it becomes overwhelming so quickly. You have to view the responsibility and the power that comes with that and that we have access to, even just in our own minds. And then we can really start to do some good stuff in the world. We can start to use that responsibility skillfully.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we perceive the interaction or the experience ultimately will dictate whether you're anxious about it or whether you're excited about it, right?
Perceive.
And that's one of the like, if we compiled a list of things that you ultimately have control over, that's probably at the top of the list. You have control over your perception of your reality. You get to control your mindset, or you can allow other things, external forces, to control and impact your mindset and your perception. But ultimately, that's a choice that you're making. You're allowing that, right? Wheel of consent here. You're allowing that. You're giving consent for these external forces to influence and dictate how you're perceiving, if you're doing that. Ultimately, it is within your control. It's within your domain. So a couple examples would be like, oh, there's a log in the middle of this hiking trail. Like you could be like, damn, it's blocking my way. Or cool, I get to practice this parkour move and flip over this log, right? Or a big one that I hear often is like rain. Some people really don't like when it's raining. Oh, I have to drive in the rain. This sucks. I celebrate the rain every time we get it because my garden needs the rain. All of these plants need this. And it also, I mean, there's other benefits of like, it reduces wildfires and things like that, right? Like we want a moist condition for a lot of reasons, but some people view the rain as such a negative thing. When I used to live in the city, no one was happy about the rain. Everybody complained about it. When I lived in California, that was like, as soon as it starts raining a little bit, California drivers forget what it means to drive and what the heck they're doing, which is true. But that's all a perception. They're choosing to freak out or have all of these reactions to the rain rather than being, grateful and excited that, a much needed process is happening for the environment in which we live in.
That's right. The voluntary taking on of challenge, I think, of the adversity is that part of the mindset that becomes so vital. I think about, I hear it cold more than rain around here. Maybe people in Pittsburgh are just like so used to the rain, but the cold, people will use that as an excuse to not leave their house all winter. To do, I do health visits, and I was, haven't left the house in, weeks or something. I like to walk, but I can't because of the cold. And I think cold's such a good example because, cold plunges, cold baths have become more popular lately, and I'm a big fan of that stuff. I like the extremes, and I really think the benefit, it goes just with what we're talking about here with mindset and excitement, anxiety. The benefit, I don't think, is just from cold exposure. I think that's one part, and you can measure the physiologic benefits. I think voluntary taking on of the cold exposure is where it gets beneficial. I think it's where it gets really beneficial. It's one thing to be, your car breaks down, you have to walk through the cold for an hour, and you might feel, how might you feel at the end of that? Oh man, what a day, I deserve my treat, I deserve to scroll whenever I get home, I'm exhausted. But what if you chose to, I'm gonna go test my endurance, I'm gonna go walk in the cold for an hour, or I'm gonna go jump in an ice bath, or I'm gonna go take that cold shower for a minute after the hot shower, and I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna breathe, and I'm gonna take on something that is uncomfortable, that is adversity, knowing that it will make me stronger. How do you feel at the end of that? Oh, because I just said that, because I came in knowing it would make me stronger, I feel stronger by the end of it. I feel energized, I feel boosted, I really do. I do cold shower almost every day, and I feel great by it. And the first time I did, I was like, what the hell's wrong with people? I was like, But now I'm just like, And it's so funny. It's that mindset again. So I think voluntary, I think viewing your life as a choice, viewing your choices as choices and not as things that are just happening to you. And just like you said, I love that, controlling your perspective as best you can, how you're perceiving these events. Really the only thing you have at the end of the day, the only thing you have, that's where freedom comes from. And I really think responsibility is a path to freedom. I think discipline is a path to freedom. I think they're very similar. And yeah, it's just such a shame whenever we give up that pathway to freedom, to meaning, because I think it's just like you said, Dawson, I think often it's because we're afraid of just the consequences. We can't handle letting down people, letting down ourselves, but we give up so much if we do that. We give up so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about the ice baths and cold showers, because I remember I read, I don't know, probably like on Twitter or something, people talking about how good taking a couple minutes of a cold shower is. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try this. And I did, and I had your same reaction. I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, who would do this? But, the way you frame it is, like you said, sure, there's some physical, I'm sure positives from it, but it's almost like more the mental part of like going into something knowing it's going to be uncomfortable and just sitting with it and getting through it. And once you get through it, you're going to look at yourself and be like, hey, I did that. Like it might be a small victory. Nobody else would really, probably know about it, but just for yourself, it's like, hey, I did that thing that was hard. And I really like that. You know what? I think I'm going to do that later. I'll give it a shot. I will report back next week.
Mutual inspiration. That's it. That's how these things spread. I love it.
Yeah, I love the piece about discipline too, bringing that into the fold, doing the thing because it's the thing you need to do, not necessarily the thing you want to do, which also comes into like a level of like emotional maturity of like, am I making decisions based on short-term benefits, or am I making decisions because I know in the long run, and this is good for this is beneficial for my highest good, right? And that's a really important piece. The first example, of course, not surprising, is fasting, something that I'm very passionate about, something that I do regularly, and openly invite anyone who's curious about doing it to participate, because it is another gateway to like empowerment, like really being in control of your reality, being in control of your, like controlling what you can control. You have the ability to control what you pick up and shovel into your mouth. Like you get to choose that, or you can choose not to eat anything at all. And then that's where the work begins, because there's so many parts of you, so many aspects of your body that are going to send signals to your brain, your decision making portion, if that is your brain, like whatever part of you that's ultimately deciding whether or not you eat. It's tempting. It's going to send a lot of signals saying, we need to eat. This hurts. This doesn't feel good. We're not going to make it. And the ability to quiet that, or even just respond to it, maybe not even quiet, really hear it and say, no, no, no. I hear what you're saying. Maybe we'll use our reflection tool here. I hear you saying that we really need to eat these cookies right now, or whatever thing, this snack that we're justifying. You're saying it's okay to eat even though I'm trying to fast, but that's not what I want to do. That doesn't align with what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I'm going to choose not to do what you're saying, because I disagree with what you're proposing here. It doesn't match what I'm trying to do. And the amount, I mean, for me, that was really the beginning of my journey of being in control of myself, is food. When I was a kid, it was modeled for me, and therefore I also picked this up. But like, food was a way to soothe ourselves, soothe our emotions, soothe any uncomfortable, undesirable feelings that I had. Well, I would just have ice cream, or I'll just have these chips, or whatever. It was a way to, I don't know, get me what I wanted. It was a pathway to feeling better than I was feeling. And so for me, breaking those connections with food was extremely difficult. And it was a struggle the first couple of times that I fasted. Day one, sure, I can go a day without eating. But day two, day three, that's really where you're tested. And a lot of those patterns and unhealthy like eating habits were really surfacing during those days. And so yeah, that again, awareness though, right? Like you being able to witness it and say, oh wow, look at this pattern that's coming up. That's really interesting, and I don't want to give into that pattern, or I don't align with whatever that pattern is any longer. I'm going to do something different. But that has to come up before you can do something about it. That awareness is so important.
It's the first step. You always say awareness is the first step. Thank you for sharing about the food and the fasting. I did one fasting container with you, and I found it so enlightening. It was a great growth experience for me. Definitely invite me on the next one too. I forget about these. You're more in tune with the moon than I am. I forget about when the full moon is. You do it on the full moon?
Every new moon, and March 29th is the next one, and I'm definitely planning to create flyers, and I want to put it out on our platform and invite anybody that would be interested to fast. So hopefully we'll get a pretty big turnout this time.
I think that's great, because it's not something that I see offered very much, and you need community for it, because this is one of those things that comes up a lot, is that what's safe, like, am I going to hurt myself with that? Some people have medical conditions, and there's a lot. I would deal with this a lot during Ramadan whenever I worked with a much more diverse population at one clinic, and I had a lot of people fasting, and I was seeing 80 2-year-old women with diabetes, like going through, long fast. And it really opened my mind to what we're capable of. And that's what you really churned by bringing this up for me is I'm going to posit something here because I've been sitting with the question, how do we know if we're trying our best? That fourth agreement, always try your best. I've been sitting with that since it came up earlier. Like, how do we know that we are? Because that's where all these excuses come in. That's where this doubt comes in where, well, maybe I did try my best, but did I really, or was I making excuses? How do I know? I think it might only be possible through challenge. I think you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. You have to take on suffering, discomfort, cold showers, fasting, and really put yourself to the test so you can tune in to where your limits actually are. And I wonder if that's where so much of the vague discontent that is so common to the human experience, that can see those feeling blah, feeling not powerful, feeling not in control. How much of that is because some part of us knows that we're never really reaching our limits? How many of us feels like we're meeting the day at 100%, exactly on our line, on our appropriate edge of discomfort and comfort? I know that's a hard one to hit, and it's a perilous place to try to rest because you often go too far and you do get hurt or injured or something emotionally, physically, whatever it is. So I do think challenge, and then especially challenge with community, doing like let's say a fasting container where you have support and other people to bounce your ideas off of and not going it alone, is, I'm going to say that it might be vital for getting to the fourth agreement. I'll throw that out to you guys. Do you think you can achieve knowing your best without challenging yourself to find where those limits are?
Dawson, I'll let you take that first.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can really know. I think you can know what your like current, what you think your current best is based on your experiences. Like maybe whatever your highest challenge is, you can look at it and be like, okay, I did this, so that must be my best. But if you don't keep expanding it, you're probably not reaching what your real best is. You're like hindering yourself from it. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, I think a potential issue with that approach of looking at our belief ultimately of our capabilities is a lot of times that's clouded by past experiences where we have allowed others' opinions or judgments or our own opinions and judgments of ourselves, and a negative self-image can really distort what you're capable of doing. And so if you don't have the challenge and you're only left with, well, these are the things that I've done before and this is what I know I can and can't do, if you don't have a lot of experiences where you've overcome difficult things or triumphed over a challenge in the past, you could get stuck in the easy trap of giving up before you even try. Let's avoid the disappointment. It's easier to not even do it because I'm not capable, because look at all these things I couldn't do. And so I do think it is important to do the challenge, because what you were capable of then might not be what you're capable of now. Hopefully you're growing and evolving and becoming an improved version of yourself consistently. And so definitely I lean toward the side of do the challenge, do the thing that's difficult, and see if you can come out on top. See if you can be victorious. One thing that popped up for me in your share, Derek, was like excuses in fasting. If you're not sure about your relationship with excuses, fast, because you will come up with a bunch. You will come up with all sorts of excuses why it's okay to break your fast early. All the reasons that it's okay to not complete this thing that you set out to do. It's real. You will have so many. I have them still, and I've been doing this for years. I still have excuses come up of, that's fine. You don't really, you did pretty good. You got to, 60 something hours. It's not quite 72, but it's pretty good. Like, it's okay. You can go ahead and fast because your belly is hungry or whatever. Like, I'm a little lightheaded at times. I better stop. Like, that's actually I don't have the medical, maybe Derek, you can speak to it, but I've read and listened to many people talk about these aspects of fasting, of the lightheadedness when you get up, and how actually that's your body like refreshing things, and like that's a positive sign. That's not a like a warning sign of, oh no, you need food because your blood sugar this or that. Actually, your body's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. And just be more gentle with yourself, move more slowly, don't get up really quickly and try to do like dynamic movements. If you're 2-3 days into a fast, be gentle, be soft, and allow your body to do what it needs to do. The body is such an intelligent, perfectly operating machine. If you just let it do what it needs to do, it will care for you. That's its job, that's its function. And we as humans scarcely understand what's going on with the body still, with the advancements that we have, the technology that we have. We just started talking about fascia in the last few years and how it connects everything in your body. Your pinky toe is connected to your left ear. Like, they are not separate, but we've had this misguided perception of the body and how it works. And I firmly believe that the body is divinely intelligent and is designed to do what it needs to do if you simply let it do its processes. If you've got a cut on your arm, you'll watch it heal itself. The same thing happens internally too if you let it heal itself. But if you keep stabbing yourself in that same spot on your arm, it's not going to heal. Similarly, if you keep eating poison and you don't give your body a chance to detoxify itself and remove those poisons, it's not going to be able to do it. So, like, that's, I'm get off my soapbox here on that one, but like,
Yeah.
it's
You're
really important.
motivational. Absolutely, that's motivational. All right, Tony Robbins over here. Get me, I'll never eat again.
Roni Topham.
No, you're totally right though. That well, for one, just like you said, go within your limits. But the first thing I thought as a healthcare provider was like, oh, yep, someone's going to fall when they get lightheaded. That's the other thing. You look out for the things. But if you are careful and, stand up slowly, are willing to sit back down and recognize that you're lightheaded, don't decide to then go play a pickup game of basketball just at that moment, you are, like you said, I think you are probably going to be fine and going to be helped by the experience overall. And that's again where excuses come in. It's so interesting where you see these flags. Maybe it's not a red flag. Maybe it's a yellow flag. Maybe it's a beige flag. And do you go toward it or away from it? And we often go away from and use it as the excuse for what we wanted. We were hungry anyway, so, I'm getting lightheaded. Nope, now I have to eat. And you're right, if you push through those things, just like with the cold, just like with different breath work, you're going to find really greater limits than you thought you had. You're going to feel stronger afterwards most of the time. It's going to be a positive experience. You almost said word for word something that Wim Hof says in the Wim Hof method. Like, I did that for a while, the holotropic breathing and cold tolerant stuff. And yeah, I was able to hold my breath out, like exhale completely and then not breathe in for 2 minutes. That was my max when I was doing that technique. Couldn't even touch that now, but I know it's like you said, it's one of those benchmarks that I can look at. And it can then help me for the rest of my life. No, I'm not doing my best breath-wise. Like, I tried that now. I'm slacking a little bit, but I was able to really push my limits, do that consistently for a while. Have a 2-minute exhale without breathing in, and it felt wild. And one of the things that Wim Hof will say in the guided breathwork thing is, "Let the body do what the body is capable of doing." He says, I've heard that one a good 100 times or so. So that stuck with me, and that's just what you're saying. And I think you're right that it really does know a lot. And I really believe in the mind-body-spirit connection. And so all this, maybe it could seem like we're getting off topic here, but I really don't think we are. I think when we talk about personal responsibility, I think that has to start with your body mostly, and that you can learn a lot about your mind and your limits through your body, and that you can only learn, I'll say this, some things about your mind through experimenting with your body, that they're that intrinsically connected, just like you're saying the pinky toe and the ear are connected. I really think, your relationship to food is connected to your breath, is connected to your stomach, and all these things in a way that you won't know until you experiment. So I feel like it's a pretty good call to action to, take care of your body. The body is a temple. It's about to be Lent, where a lot of people give up something. As we're recording this, tomorrow is Lent starting. A lot of people give up something or start fasting or do something to tune back into their body because they recognize that it's part of their spiritual growth, part of their mental growth, and some of the only ways we can really take responsibility for our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add on top of that real quick that like fasting may not be like the best thing for each person or whatever, but it is a direct route to empowerment. It's really the easiest way if you want to test yourself and you want to challenge yourself. Don't eat for 2 days. Drink lots of water, hydrate. I promise your body will be fine. You will survive. Don't eat for 2 days. And see what's on the other side of that. See what comes up between those 48 hours. And if you're looking for a challenge, if you're looking for a way to test your resolve, it's a great way to do it. It's really easy and accessible. Whereas like, well, I have this trigger and I normally respond this way, but I want to respond this other way, which is a challenge. You're going to have to wait until you're triggered again. And when that comes up, depending on the circumstances of the day, maybe you're in a place to be challenged and maybe you're not, right? But fasting is something at any moment you can just make the decision to stop eating and you can engage in that challenge and see how you respond to it.
That's right. I forgot to mention one of my favorite quotes for this because a lot of people are going to be like, but why? That sounds the same way I felt with the cold shower. Dawson's the same reaction that happens the first time. It's like, but why? Isn't life brutal enough? But I've had that excuse. And here's what always gets me back is do hard things so you can have an easy life. Do hard things so you can have an easy life. I think that hits it spot on. I think that's correct from how everything I've seen, and I've lost sight of that many a time, and I try to do the easy things, and then life gets hard, and I'm like, why is life so hard? But it's because I'm doing easy things, and these are lessons that we have to learn. We have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to not shame and blame ourselves for forgetting, and that's how I view it. But some people just get the whip and just start cracking. They're like, we're going to achieve greatness. I don't think it's sustainable. This is my view. But this keeps me back. It's very rational. It's very easy. Do hard things so you can have an easy life.
Yeah, it sounds like I think that's a Joe Rogan quote.
I really heard it in a yoga studio, but it's very possible. I'm sure it's all over. I don't know where I attribute it, but I heard it in a yoga studio first. A very non-Joe Rogan environment.
He was talking about how like he starts every day with an ice bath. Yeah. And he's like, I do the coldest thing the coldest ice bath you can do. And then after that, everything's freaking easy because that sucked so bad that like anything compared to that, oh, fine, at least it's not that. Right. And so it seems very similar to that mindset of like, well, if I do these difficult things, whatever is going to be thrown at me is going to be easier than that. And so I can approach it and receive it with ease rather than like, oh, this is the hardest thing that I've had to deal with today. This is freaking overwhelming. And like that, again, perception is going to make it a lot harder to overcome whatever that thing is that's being presented to you. If you're viewing it as the hardest thing you've had to deal with, that's up here on a pedestal. That makes it, right, a very high pressured situation. It's daunting. Whereas if it's like, well, compared to earlier, like it's nothing at all, you can move through it with a lot more mindfulness and ease.
Yeah, and just to add in that voluntary part again, if someone just poured a bunch of cold water on Joe Rogan first thing in the morning, he might not have the best day. That's a rough way to wake up. Right. But the fact that he woke up and then went into it and chose to, right, I think is where he got so much of the benefit. We'll do the experiment. Someone will pour some water on him one day and see if he has a good day.
Right.
We'll run it.
No, I think you might be right. I don't think we need to do the experiment. I'm going to assume that you're right on that one. Dawson, do you have anything on that? Sorry, we just kept going on that.
No, yeah, you're good. I think I'm going to pour cold water on someone and I'm going to say, that's the hardest thing you're going to have to experience today.
You're welcome.
Sign up to work with Dawson.
This is a service. This is a service he offers only in the greater Phoenix area. He will come to your house and pour ice cold water on you so you can have a better day.
Yeah, you won't know when it's coming, but it will. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, it's definitely a good mindset to have about putting on, like, taking on the hard challenges.
Do you have any examples, Dawson, of hard challenge things that you've experienced and
Yeah,
how it's impacted you?
yeah. For me, like, I'd say, the gym was one. Like, when I started working out and stuff, it was like really daunting at first. Like, I was worried everyone's gonna like be looking at me, and then like I'm gonna be like out of place and not know what I'm doing. But after a while of going, it just gets more comfortable and more easy. So that's one for sure. And then also, like, I've talked about before, I think on here, like, I have some social anxiety, and for me, getting through like social events could be like kind of difficult. But what I normally do, and I know I'm about to get into one, is I'll think about the past ones. I'll be like, okay, well, I'm nervous about this one coming up, but I've also gotten through ones that are bigger, and I'm alive. I'm fine. Nothing really happened. The worst that happened was I was kind of anxious and maybe a little awkward. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm here. Like, I'm okay. I try to remind myself, like, in things like that, kind of what you were saying is like your body will take care of you. Like, I try to remind myself, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, some discomfort. Okay, but like, I'm still gonna be here. I'm still gonna be fine. So yeah, those are a couple examples for me that come to the top of my head. Just reminding myself of, like, I'm stronger than I think that I give myself credit for.
Hmm.
Yep.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, man. Um, yeah, I think that's great example. And I don't have too much coming up on that. Derek, do you have anything?
No, I think it's been a great conversation. I feel inspired. I'm about to dive into a frozen lake somewhere in Pennsylvania. I'll send my location, guys. Don't worry, but I'm ready. I'm ready to dive in. I love it. And I think just to build on what you said, Dawson, it's just that's why you do the hard things is then you also have those touch points where you know that I did this. I can think of a difficult internship where I had to give like a talk in front of like 100 people, more than that, maybe 200, and like wearing a suit. And I was just terrified at that stage in my life. Like I honestly, but I cannot imagine like something where it was so scary, but practice for it for a semester, put in a lot of hours, did it. And part of why I did it was because I know that that's under my belt now. That was almost a decade ago, but I know that I could go in front of a group again and be like, well, if I could do that 10 years ago, I've done a lot of Wim Hof, a lot of cold baths since then. I think I'm going to be just okay. So, really congratulate yourselves for the things that you've done. Don't rest on your laurels, but don't forget them either. You gotta remember, like, yeah, I'm stronger than I think. Like, wow. And that culture of gratitude inside yourself can very easily spread out to others, and you can end up, that's maybe all I'll say here. We talk about personal responsibility, but spread that to others. Help call up the strength in others. That doesn't take much, but you can be the person who, when you're talking to a friend, it reminds them of that difficult thing they did, and how great it was when you guys were there doing that together. When you saw that, it takes a moment, and that's something I try to keep in mind when I'm connecting with people, because we can create some. Dawson and I talked about with Nicole on the Four Horsemen episode, like having a culture of appreciation in a relationship so important. I think we can have that with everyone and help have that culture of strength, which will lead to a culture of responsibility when people feel empowered enough to take responsibility for things. That's when the magic happens.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And to tie that back into what we were talking about earlier in our perception, if we're appreciative of all of the things that are coming to us, then nothing is bad. Oh, there's a traffic jam. Okay, well, I appreciate this is giving me an opportunity to like send this message because I don't have to actually be focusing on driving right now. I can do this correspondence or again, appreciating the rain, appreciating whatever obstacle is in front of you. It's an opportunity for you to overcome it. It's an opportunity for you to grow and to overcome adversity. And that is something, again, that you can control. And so back to self-responsibility, you can control whether or not you're appreciating the things that you're experiencing or if you're dreading them and resenting them. And for anyone that isn't ready to jump into a freezing cold lake with Derek today, I invite you to explore your mindset and maybe jump into the freezing cold mindset of appreciation and responsibility for how you're showing up and how you're viewing your circumstances.
That's right. And jump in the lake with Derek.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
Book
give
your
him
flight.
an excuse. Don't give him an excuse. You can do that both.
Right. Book your flights to Pittsburgh now. All right, guys. Thanks so much for being here. As always, a very insightful and beautiful conversation, and I look forward to talking to y'all next week.
Yep, talk to you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been the Do You Feel Heard podcast. If you're interested in resources that will help you move through conflict, you can go to doyoufeelheard.com, where we have tools for individuals and couples.